My parents said, "We're doing a small Christmas, just close family." The next morning, I saw photos. 38 people. My ex was there. I didn't reply. I just froze the utilities and blocked their access to the account they were using and allowed their plans to proceed. By morning, my phone exploded with missed calls. When my mom said we were doing a small Christmas this year, just close family, I knew immediately something was off. That's not her style. Small isn't, even in her vocabulary. This is a woman who once hired a bartender for a 4th of July breakfast. But after everything that happened last year, I thought, maybe, just maybe. She toned it down. I asked her 3 separate times. He kept repeating it. Just us. She even guilt-tripped me with some line about how family is all that really matters in the blessed end, which is hilarious, considering how hard she's tried to shove me back into Docker, the arms of the man who once locked me in his apartment, because I wouldn't wear my newness, a dress he picked out. And yes, that ex was her personal favorite. Every time I bring up what he did, she acts like I'm being dramatic. People argue, she says, but he comes from such a good family. I still don't know what kind of good family lets their son throw glassware during an argument. Anyway, I agreed to come against my better judgment, mostly because Grandma was going, and she's the only reason I don't set the entire family thread on fire and block the mall. She told me she'd only stay a night, that it wasn't worth the drama, and I decided I'd do the same. In, out, smile, leave. Christmas Eve was quiet, suspiciously quiet. My sister, of course, was there. Madison, the baby, the golden child, the one who once accidentally sent a photo of me drunk from college to my boss. She said it was a mistake, of course, just like she accidentally dated my high school boyfriend 2 months after we broke up. But I digress. Mom made this huge thing about how they were keeping it simple. Just dinner, pajamas, no pressure. I thought maybe they were trying to make up for the past, or maybe someone had actually knocked sense into them. Then woke up the next morning and saw it. A flood of Instagram stories, group photos, a buffet table long enough to cater a wedding. My ex, his parents, friends I hadn't seen in years. People I know don't even like my family. People I wasn't even on speaking terms with. 38 people at my parents' house. The place I had left at 11 p.m. the night before. I scrolled through each post like I was being punched. And there was my mother, front and center, laughing with my ex, like they were old best friends. Madison had posted a video of them playing charades. My ex was acting out Titanic. My mom yelled Jack and clapped like a seal. The best part? They'd even tagged the event. Number Christmas with the Bennett. My last name. Not a single text to me. Not a call. Not even a fake "oops, we forgot to tell you." They had planned it this way. They excluded me from my own family's Christmas party because they didn't want to risk me causing a scene in front of him, because they were still trying to matchmake me with someone who had once screamed at me so loud my neighbor called the police. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I froze. And then I remembered something. The utilities for their house, water, electricity, heating were still under the joint family account I opened years ago when they were in debt and I had a good job. They were still using my access. So I let their plans proceed, and I froze everything else. The moment I saw my ex's face in that Instagram story, grinning next to my dad, drink in hand, like he hadn't once grabbed my wrist, hard enough to leave a bruise. Something in me snapped clean in, too. It wasn't just the fact that they had thrown a full Christmas party behind my back. It was that they'd invited him. The one person they knew I wouldn't share a room with, let alone a holiday. And worse, they'd done it on purpose, because for years, my parents have treated my life like a stage play they're directing, like I'm some character who needs to follow the script they wrote for me, marry rich, pretend things are fine, smile for photos, never bring up the ugly stuff, especially not that stuff. But this time, they made a mistake, a real one. See, when my parents were in trouble a few years ago, financial trouble, the kind that makes people quietly sell jewelry and re-mortgage for renovations, I stepped in. I was working for a fintech startup and had a stable income. And since they're terrible with my life, paperwork and tech, I offered to help set up their utility accounts under my read-in name. They were grateful for exactly 1 week. After that, it became just another thing I was supposed to do. But I never took myself off the account. I just forgot till now. I logged into the dashboard and sat there, just watching the numbers. The heating system had kicked on at 6 a.m. sharp, trying to warm a 5-bedroom house with cathedral ceilings and no insulation. I imagine my mom's ridiculous silk pajamas and her terrible habit of walking around barefoot even in December. She'd be cold in minutes. So I did it. I turned off the gas first, then the electricity, then the water. Each one had a little confirmation box. Are you sure you want to do this? I clicked yes 3 times without blinking. Then I went one step further. I changed the login credentials, set a new email, new password, enabled 2-factor authentication tied to a burner number I created that morning. I watched the screen blink and update. It was done. By then, it was close to noon. I didn't hear a thing, not a call, not a text. My parents must have assumed it was an N after outage. They probably told everyone to stay calm. Madison probably tried to spin it into a bonding moment. Let's all gather in the living room and light candles like a holiday movie. But I knew better. I knew how fast that kind of chaos spreads. The first text came at 12:41 p.m. Who is my dad? Hey, power's out. Any chance you can check the login? We think the system glitched. 10 minutes later, my mom called. I didn't pick up. She called again, then from a different number. I blocked them all. An hour later, Madison chimed in. Well, do you still have the login for the house utilities? Totally random, but the heat is off and it's like 40 degrees in here. Loudly crying face. The smiley crying emoji nearly made me throw my phone. I didn't answer. By 3:00 p.m., the group photos stopped. The Instagram stories vanished. People started leaving recognized the signs. The Bennett. Christmas had officially crashed. Still, no apology. Still no explanation for the 38-person lie. At 4:30 p.m., the neighbor called. They must have begged her to try. I let it ring. Then I got an email. A long, pathetic ramble from my dad asking for help, saying the food was spoiling, that Grandma wasn't feeling well, and they couldn't get a hold of anyone at the utility company. And then, finally, at 5:22 p.m., Scarlet. What did you do? Not, we're sorry. Not, please help. Just those 5 words. I turned my phone off. They spent the night like that, cold, wet, and embarrassed. Madison texted again, later saying the pipes were making weird noises. That was when it hit me. Their backup generator hadn't been serviced in years. Dad always said he didn't need it. By midnight, I turned my phone back on just to watch the chaos. Grandma texted me once, just once. He said, I don't know what they did. I'm proud of you. That was the only message I saved. And then I remembered something. New Year's was next week, and my parents had already rented the same lakeside lodge they use every year. The reservation was in my name because they booked it using my card points back in July, when Mom Gill tripped me about doing something special for the family. He thought I'd forgotten. She was very, very wrong. Days after the Christmas blackout, the flood of phone calls stopped, not because they had calmed down, but because they'd finally realized they were locked out of everything. And with no apology on the horizon, I didn't feel any reason to unlock it. The best part, I knew what came next. New Year's was my mom's crown jewel. Every year she made it into a full production. Matching outfits, family games, countdown, speeches. Last year, she brought in a photographer for candid champagne photos. She never cared if we had fun, just that we looked like we were. And this year, they had plans. Big ones. The reservation was sitting quietly in my mound inbox. Exactly where I'd forgotten it. A. Lakeside Lodge, 3 nights. 30th to January 2nd. 5 bedrooms, full kitchen, hot tub, and a fireplace bigger than my first apartment. Paid for using my reward points. Booked under my name. I remembered now. In July, she called, crying about how the family needed a comet reset, and this year should be different. I was busy, distracted, and said yes just to end the call. I'd never planned on going, but clearly they had, because people were talking. An old classmate met me out of nowhere to ask if it was true I was back with Brandon, my ex, the abusive one. Couldn't say his name without flinching, for nearly a year. So, that was the plan. Trap me at a picturesque lodge, parade me in front of family and friends, pair me off with Brandon. Like none of it ever happened. Like I was just difficult and too sensitive. Didn't want reconciliation. They wanted a photo op, a redemption arc for them. They weren't getting it. Property manager directly told her there was a change in plans, and I needed to cancel. No issue. The booking was in my name. Then, I rebooked the lodge for the exact same dates under a different alias using the same reward points. I even changed the key code to a new one, only I had access to. And because I wanted them to know this wasn't an accident, I sent a package to the lodge's front desk. Time to arrive the morning of December 30th. Inside the soded envelope was a plain card in bold black letters. Try lying your way into this. 1. Mom. The silence didn't last long. Around noon on the 30th, Madison texted, "Hey all, do you have the lodge info? Mom said you booked it." No punctuation, no apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. Here. And the guy at the front is saying there's no reservation. I could almost picture her standing in the cold, in overpriced boots, shocked that her name didn't magically open doors. My mom's message came next. Scarlet, fix this now. We have guests? Of course they did. I bet they dragged half the family up there expecting me to come, crawling in for a New Year's forgiveness arc. Before I finally responded, I canned it. You're not invited. It was satisfying, but it wasn't enough because 30 minutes later, my ex called. His number flashed on my screen for the first time in over a year. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, the kind where he pretended to be calm, but couldn't quite hide the anger underneath. Said I was being immature, disrespectful, and that I owed the family peace. Like what I owed anyone was silence and obedience. I blocked him again, this time for good. They ended up staying in a roadside motel 2 towns over. Madison posted a few forced pictures. Plastic champagne, flutes, a broken mini fridge in the background. Her caption pretending it was all a big laugh. My mom tried to post. One of those memories aren't about the place, they're about the people. Quotes. They looked miserable. I spent New Year's in Grandma's tiny apartment. Just the two of us. Soup. We watched a black and white movie and didn't even notice when the clock struck midnight. No speeches, no photographers, no one pretending. Clinked glasses, and she said, No, your mother was already broken before she had you. I didn't say anything right away. Then I said it out loud for the first time. I think I'm done with all of them. She nodded, then said something that made me sit up straight. Good. Now, go change the banking passwords. I saw Madison snooping through your emails last Thanksgiving. And that's when I realized it wasn't just utilities and vacations. They were still stealing from me. The new year came and went without a single word from my parents. No apology. No attempt to make peace. Just silence, which coming from them wasn't a sign of maturity. It was a sign that they were planning something. They only ever went quiet when they were scheming. I was right. Grandma called me a few days into January. She said Mom was telling everyone I'd stolen the Christmas fund and sabotaged the family trip out of typical. They can set the entire house on fire and still call me the arsonist. That was when I remembered what Grandma said on New Year's Eve about changing my banking passwords. So I did. Or rather, I tried to. And what I found made the blackout look like child's play. When I'd set up their utilities years ago, I'd also helped them open a family account to keep track of household expenses. It was supposed to be temporary, a bridge until they got in tires, back on their feet. But somehow, over the years, it turned into their personal person wallet. My name was still on it as primary holder, which meant I could see everything. I logged in and nearly dropped my coffee. There were dozens of transactions, Uber rides, online, shopping, random Venmo transfers to people I didn't know. But the one that stood out was from 4 days earlier. A $3,200 charge to a luxury spa resort, 2 towns away. I clicked on it thinking maybe it was some old payment. Oh, it was active. A couple's retreat check-in, that weekend under Madison's name and the guest listed with her. Brandon. X. I sat there staring at the screen. For a second, I actually thought it was a mistake. Then I checked the confirmation email, the one my mom had forwarded to herself. There was a note attached from her to Madison. Glad you, two, are finally spending some time together. It'll make Scarlet realize what she's missing. They had lost their minds. Not only were they using my money to book a romantic weekend for my abusive ex and my sister, they were trying to punish me with it. That was the moment I decided I wasn't just cutting ties, I was cutting them off completely. Last dollar, redirected it to my personal one and closed the family account entirely. Then I went through their connected subscriptions, utilities, and insurance login, all the things they begged me to help set up years ago, and changed every password. They'd wake up the next morning locked out of everything. But then I remembered something worse. Back in college, I'd created an LLC for freelance work, a small design business. I ran under my name. After graduation, I stopped using it. I barely even remembered it existed until I noticed something odd while combing through old files. There were recent transactions under the same business account. I dug deeper. They were still using it. My parents had reopened the LLC under my identity and were claiming tax write-offs. Thousands of dollars of fake expenses, vacations, clothing, marketing events, all filed in my name. They weren't just stealing, they were committing fraud. I didn't even feel angry at first, just stunned, like I'd been living in some twisted sitcom where every episode got darker than the last. I sat there for a long time scrolling through the statements, realizing how deep their stupidity ran. So, I made it official. Tax attorney I'd worked with years ago and sent her everything. The bank statements, the fake filings, the receipts. I filed a formal report, quietly. No confrontation, no warning, just a clean legal detachment. They get a letter soon. The kind you can't charm in your way out of. That night, I got a discard text from a number I didn't recognize. You went too far. This is family. No name. No punctuation, but I knew exactly who it was. Brandon. I blocked it. Then, 10 minutes later, Madison. What the hell did you do? Mom's freaking out. You're ruining their lives. I didn't answer. I wasn't ruining their lives. I was just handing them the mess they built with their own hands. But then, something unexpected happened. An email popped up from the bank. It wasn't about the closed account. It was about the house. The mortgage, it said, was listed under a joint ownership, my dad's name and mine. I didn't remember signing anything like that. But when I opened the file attached to the notice, I saw my own signature perfectly forged. That was the surprise. Not just the money, not just the manipulation. They had used my name again to secure their house. The house they were still living in. And legally, according to the papers I was holding, it belonged more to me than to them. I stared at the forged signature for a quote, long time. It wasn't just similar, it was exact. It looked like it had been copied from a scanned lease I'd signed years ago, back when I still trusted my parents not to use my personal information like a clearance card. I checked the metadata. The document had been submitted during a refinance 3 years ago. Around the same time, Dad had suddenly started bragging about rebuilding the house equity. I remembered it now. How they celebrated that year like they'd won the lottery, bought new appliances, took a cruise. They used me to fund it. They didn't just commit fraud. They tied me to their house wiggly financially. So I called in the bank and played it carefully. I asked for a breakdown of the current ownership structure. They hesitated at first until they confirmed my identity and that, yes, I was listed as a majority stakeholder in the property, 73%. I own more of the house than they did. I was so stunned I didn't say a word for a full minute. Once it sank in, I hung up and called my attorney again. She asked if I wanted to pursue criminal charges for the forged signature. I told her not yet, that I had something better in mind. The eviction paperwork was drafted the next day, but I didn't file it. Not immediately. Instead, I wrote a single email to both my parents. Subject line, notice. The house you live in is legally 73% mine. The documents you forged are on record. You have 30 days to leave, or I will initiate formal eviction. I won't negotiate. Do not contact me again. I blocked every number I hadn't already blocked. I turned off email and notifications, and I waited. It took only 6 hours for the panic to start. Madison called from an unknown number, then texted, then emailed. This is insane. You're literally kicking your own parents out of their home. You're acting like a psycho. Grandma said this isn't what she wanted. You need help. She had the nerve to say Grandma wouldn't approve. As if the woman who told me to change my passwords was suddenly there. Shield. I ignored it all because while they were melting down, something else was happening in the background, something they weren't prepared for. I got a message request on Instagram. A girl I didn't know with a private profile and barely any mutuals. Her name was Carrera. The message was short. Are you Scarlet? Were you with Brandon a few years ago? My heart dropped. I replied, cautiously just asking why. She said she was dating him now, or had been. But something felt wrong. She'd gone through his phone and found photos of me, notes, an unsent email draft titled, "She'll come back if she sees us together." I froze. She asked if he had ever hurt me. I told her the truth. Not everything, just enough. How he used to isolate me, how he once smashed a bottle against the wall during a fight and blamed me for provoking him. How he tracked my location. Even after I left, there was a long pause. Then she sent a final message. Thank you. I'm leaving him. Today, I knew something was off. There, rereading it over and over. And, for the first time in this whole unraveling mess, I felt something close to relief because I hadn't just burned the bridge. I was watching the smoke warn someone else before they crossed. Dang it. But even that wasn't the end. Later, that night, Grandma called. She sounded calm, but I could hear something behind her voice. That tight clipped edge she only ever used when she was really angry. She said she checked something she hadn't looked at in years, the trust account she'd set up for me when I was 15. She used to joke about it, called it Scarlet's emergency parachute. I had forgotten all about it. She hadn't. But my mother had, because when Grandma went to check the balance, it was almost empty. All the money was gone, drained over the last 2 years. Transferred, spent, moved into personal checking accounts by my mother. She thought Grandma wouldn't notice. He was wrong. Grandma didn't yell, didn't cry. He just said, I've slapped your mother twice in my life. I think she's about to earn a third. And that's when it all snapped into focus. They hadn't just betrayed me. They dropped me, lied to me, forged my name, used my money, tried to manipulate me into going back to a man who could have seriously hurt me. Now they were losing the house, and soon they'd be losing more. The eviction was finalized quicker than I expected. Once the court saw the documents, the ownership breakdown, and the forged signature. They didn't blink. I had every receipt. I didn't even have to show up in person. They were given 30 days to leave. No more, no extensions, and I didn't say a word to them during not the entire process. Not a call, not a text, not even a warning. Let them be. Surprised by something for once. Kept me updated whether I asked or not. She told me that when the official notice showed up at their door, my mom sat down on the floor like she'd been shot. That my dad tried calling the Dash's attorney to clarify the paperwork and ended up shouting at a voicemail. Madison posted something cryptic on her story about family betrayal and cutting out toxic people, which was rich, considering she once posted a selfie while I was crying in a locked bathroom during a fight with Brandon. But none of all them left, not at first. They waited, like always. I filed the follow-up order on the 31st day. That same week, the sheriff's department scheduled a lock change. My parents scrambled to pack. I didn't go near the place, but I drove past once just to see garbage bags on the lawn, a broken dresser leaning against the garage, Madison crying while trying to drag a suitcase into a borrowed sedan. It didn't feel like revenge, felt like closure. By mid-March, the house was mine in every way. I had the keys, the deed, title. I changed the locks, repainted every wall, donated the furniture they left behind. I had the carpets deep cleaned, removed the old family photos, and burned the ones that made my skin crawl. I didn't list it for sale. Yet, I didn't want to profit off the Most place. Not immediately. I had to sit, like a scar that hadn't finished, closing. Instead, I focused on cutting the last chords. I blocked them. My mom, my dad, Madison, their numbers, emails, accounts, every social media platform, even the shared calendar that used to ping me about birthdays and anniversaries. Deleted. No explanations, no warnings. Just gone. The group chat that they still used to talk around me finally kicked me out. Madison tried, adding me back once, but she couldn't reach me. Even Grandma said they were shocked. Like, they genuinely didn't. I believe I'd do it. That's always been their problem. They never thought I'd actually leave, but I did. I got a new number, a new bank. I deleted the digital trail they had access to, even shut down the email I'd used since middle school. They weren't going to find me again. And the trust account, Grandma took care of it. She met with her lawyer, filed a report, and started legal proceedings against my mother. She told me she wanted to handle it personally. I should have done this long time ago, she said. Letting her near it was my biggest mistake. That meant more than she knew, because she was the only one who stayed real, who didn't flinch when I started pulling away. She didn't beg me to make peace or tell me I'd regret it someday. She just stood by of me and stayed quiet when the world turned loud. We meet for coffee most Sundays now. She never brings up my parents unless I do. Sometimes she just sits there and talks about her garden. Like that. The last time we met, she brought a small cardboard box. I found this in the attic, she said. Inside were drawings I'd made as a kid, old photos from birthday parties, a locket I'd given her when I was 10. Everything. After she left, I sat in the car with a box in my lap, and I cried. Not for them, for me, for the girl who used to live in that house and think that love meant loyalty. No matter what, she was gone. And I wasn't grieving her anymore. I was just letting her